welcome to American Amnesia. I am your host, Cliff Garner, and I've been meaning to get to this FISA report stuff, and let's jump into that. We'll start with the memo that was sent to Devin Nunes, the chairman of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, that was sent to him by the President's office, which would be Donald F. McGahn, the second counsel to the President. He sent the memo, or sent a document to Chairman Nunes to request that it be released. This is part of the protocol, and I do enjoy reading this kind of crap because it's all legalese. It's done in a certain type of English that relies very heavily on Latin, and but also precise grammar, in which the placement of a comma can be extremely important, which I like. I like that as an English teacher. I like good writing. And you have to be very precise. You have to, cross your T's and dot your I's, so to speak. And they do. They have to. Otherwise, the ambiguity itself would make legal problems for everybody, including those that might even be trying to obfuscate a bit by using the language and stuff, but at the same time they would be undermining their own foundation. There'd be like those cartoons where the guy sits on the limb and he saws the limb off and the tree falls down and he hangs up in the air. That is exactly the issue. You would have this situation that really would not be realistic. So, and there's some other documents I was very tempted to do in place, but I should get to these and put them up there. There's basically, I think, 4 documents in which encapsulate the issue. The first is this one with the Nunes memo. Then there's the Senate memo. Then there's the Democrats' rebuttal and the Republican rebuttal to their rebuttal. And we can see where the issues line up pretty quickly when we start just basically picking it apart and analyzing it and saying, okay, well, this is important. Well, what is the corresponding information, if it exists? So sometimes they're going to ignore an issue and hope that you don't notice. And so, and that'll work for both sides. We can look at where they don't line up once we start getting a couple up there. But we need to start the foundation. This is going to take a couple times through. So we'll go where it goes, but by the same token, we need to lay the groundwork now. And we know that the FISA reports, there's problems here. If there weren't problems here, then it should have been an easy matter of proving that Trump was working with the Russians over the election. Well, since that isn't the case, then that can't be the case, really. They have proven that it's not. But in order to, and it sounds like I'm laying it out to where I have a presupposition here. I don't have a presupposition. I saw the evidence at the early points, and it was quite obvious that they didn't have anything. And then this Cozy Bear and whatever. I mean, oh, how cute, Cozy Bear. Why would a Russian spy agency name themselves after the Russian bear? Hello? Are you stupid? This is on the level of the stupidity of the Democratic Party using Obama 2008 as their password. You really do have to be stupid to do that. And if you're that stupid to do that, I guess I can see why you're fooled. But that doesn't reflect well on you. Nonetheless, we will look at the evidence as it is. And if there's something to change our minds over, okay, fine. But I haven't seen anything or heard anything on the news that's going to do that. And I've been informed on this from the beginning. I recommend anybody that really wants to know what's going on with all this to go back and look at H.A. Goodman and what he's been saying over the past about a year and a half now. And he's was a progressive. He's redefining his political stance now, and that's beautiful. I don't have to agree with him on everything that he believes. I just know that he's an honest man. That's what counts. Unfortunately, your MSM is not being very honest with you, snowflakes, and you should demand better. If you want to sit there and listen to a bunch of crap, that's your business. But at the same time, you can't expect us to be convinced by it. Not unless they do better work, and they're doing a very, very, very poor job of it. And very few of us are willing to bend an inch. And there's a reason for that. It's because you've been lied to. You accept the lie because it scratches your itching ears. And the rest of us know the truth. Or at least we know some of the truth and enough of it to say, So, you need to examine yourself. Self-examination is always good. I examine myself when I argue with people, and it's like, am I wrong? And if I am, where am I wrong? And I go back and I look at it, and you know something? I'm not wrong. And not only that, I do have the right to be fed up with hearing the same thing over and over again without any improvements. See, the definition of stupid is to do the same thing over and over again without changing anything and expecting to get a different result. And that is exactly what you're doing with the Democrats. You Dems are doing. That's what you're doing. That's what your snowflake backup people are doing. That's what your SJWs are doing. That's what all you fools are doing. And you expect to get a different result. You're not going to get a different result. You're going to get the same stuff that you did before. And it's not going to go anywhere. And not only that, think about what Abraham Lincoln said. You can fool all the people some of the time, some of the people all the time, but you cannot fool all the people all the time. And when people are wise to you, fooling them is no longer an option. So let's move on to this. And it's dated, it says White House, Washington, February 2nd, 2018. So it's a little bit more than a month old now. The Honorable Devin Nunes, Chairman, House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, United States Capitol Building, Washington, D.C., 20515. Dear Mr. Chairman. Here, let me. On January 29th, 2018, the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, hereinafter the committee, voted to disclose, and that's beautiful English right there. You're going to use a shorter version of the name, and you define it right there. Beautiful, beautiful. The committee voted to disclose publicly a memorandum containing classified information provided to the committee in connection with its oversight activities. The memorandum, which is attached to this letter. So again, this memorandum is going to be called the memorandum, and the committee is the committee. Okay, so you don't have to put all that extra extraneous information in after you define your terms. Okay? This is really important for legalese, but it's also important, really, for good writing, for good communication. Let people know what it is, and then let it go from there, right? as provided by Clause 11G, small g, of Rule 10, which is Roman numeral, of the House of Representatives, the committee has forwarded this memorandum to the President based on its determination that the release of the memorandum would serve the public interest. The Constitution vests the President, dresses him, right? Vest, transvestite, cross-dresser. But vests, right? So he's dressed, he's clothed with this armor or this protection or this costume even that which endows him with certain powers and things of this sort. There's a certain authority behind this vestment. But the Constitution vests the President, and the word invest, by the way, think about it, with the authority to protect national security secrets from disclosure. As the Supreme Court has recognized, it is the President's responsibility to classify, declassify, and control access to information bearing on our intelligence sources and methods of national defense. See, for example, Department of Navy versus Egan, 484 U.S. 518, 527 in 1988. In order to facilitate appropriate congressional oversight, the executive branch may entrust classified information to the appropriate committees of Congress, as it is done in connection with the committee's oversight activities here. Okay, so the facilitating the appropriate congressional oversight is giving them power to do so, to look at things over. The executive branch may entrust classified information to those members of the Congress. Okay, so there's this relationship here, and it's just mentioning it very quickly. The executive branch does so on the assumption that the committee will responsibly protect such classified information consistent with the law of the United States. So the assumption is that by providing these committees in the House and Senate, right, that they will handle these materials in a responsible way, that they will not leak them, they will not sell them, like perhaps a certain Secretary of State may have done. That these things will be handled in a way that is consonant with the respect to the American people to whom they've been entrusted with this. And that is the assumption. This is a key assumption that has to be made, but by the same token, if it is not acted upon in that type of a manner, then that is a betrayal of the public trust. Well, we can see where there might be a serious problem with some interpretations that have been pushed because of the stuff. The committee has now determined that the release of the memorandum would be appropriate. The executive branch across the administrations of both parties has worked to accommodate congressional requests to declassify specific materials in the public interest, in the footnote. And it lists Bush and Obama and examples in which they have done so. However, public release of classified information by unilateral action of the legislative branch is extremely rare, okay, and raises significant separation of powers concern. So you can see why the president doesn't want to do this on his own, but would rather have the cooperation from the House and Senate in order to do so. Accordingly, the committee's request to release the memorandum is interpreted as a request for declassification pursuant to the President's authority. So this declassification occurs here first before the President will do it on his own, because he's going by a good, solid procedural basis. This is keeping with tradition and how things have been done in the past, and that is true. and this is a very good procedure. It's actually been a very good procedure over the years because it should be done that way. It's when you have the executive branch unilaterally doing what it wants to do without consulting the other branches is where we start getting in trouble. And I think that is exactly correct. But the president understands that the protection of our national security represents his highest obligation. Accordingly, he has directed lawyers and national security staff to assess the declassification request consistent with established standards governing the handling of classified information, including those under Section 3.1d of Executive Order 1350-526. Those standards permit declassification when the public interest in disclosure outweighs any need to protect the information. Okay, so public interest is a key component here. And here it outweighs the need for secrecy. Okay? So there's some things they're not going to give up, which is fine. I mean, that's the way it should be. You don't want to endanger any agents or things of that sort, when it comes to intelligence. But or secrets that are necessary to be kept, whether they're intelligence gathering or otherwise. There's quite a bit of things that we can understand why they wouldn't do that. But by and large, the more transparent, the better, as far as I'm concerned. I do understand the need to keep something secret, but the amount that really needs to be kept secret, I think, is minimal. The president might not agree, and of course, while something is going down, it should be kept that way. I mean, this is why the whole concept of QAnon is really fascinating, especially the way things seem to be working out behind the scenes, and that's why I think QAnon has been fairly accurate as far as a way of gauging what's going on behind the scenes, is because it does kind of poke out here and there, and some of the things that we're seeing up front go along with that. And some of the weird, but we could actually say not so coincidental incidents that have come up, Parkland possibly, but definitely something like this recent suicide in front of the White House, and also why things went down the way they did with that shooting that occurred the same day as Parkland at NSA headquarters. We still don't know anything about it, and they haven't told us doodly squat. What's going on there? But we we kind of didn't expect to really be told, actually, or at least I didn't, and I think I said as much. So, at any rate, there's a whole, a whole rhetorical set of arguments involved in the secrecy and the revelation of information, and also what we aren't told explicitly, but we can surmise just noting factions and the nature of them. The White House review process also included input from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, DNI, who's actually the top intelligence agency, and the Department of Justice, also the DOJ. So you have basically those three coming in together: the White House, DOJ, and the DNI, all together with a united front. It speaks volumes itself. Consistent with this review and these standards, the President has determined that the classification of the memorandum is appropriate. Based on this assessment, and in light of significant public interest in the memorandum, the President has authorized the declassification of the memorandum. Okay, so it's okayed. To be clear, the memorandum reflects the judgments of its congressional authors. The President understands that oversight concerning matters related to the memorandum may be continuing, and they are. Though the circumstances leading to the declassification through this process are extraordinary, the executive branch stands ready to work with Congress to accommodate oversight requests consistent with applicable standards and processes, including the need to protect intelligence sources and methods. Sincerely, Donald F. McGahn, the Second Counsel of the President, CC'd to the Honorable Paul Ryan, Speaker of the House, and the Honorable Adam Schiff, Ranking Member of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, who would write his own soon. Unclassified document. Okay, and there will probably be parts of this that are blacked out, but let's proceed. January 18th, 2018, declassified by order of the President, February 2nd. To the HPSCI majority members from the HPSCI majority staff. Subject to Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act abuses through at the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And this is about 3 pages long. 1, 2... Yeah, about 3 pages long. Not very long, actually, for something of this sort. This is actually quite short. Heading, Purpose. This memorandum provides members with an update on significant facts relating to the committee's ongoing investigation into the Department of Justice, DOJ, and Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI. See, that's like, again, defining and then using the abbreviation that they're going to use, which is a proper, good English, and their use of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA, right, during the 2016 presidential election cycle. Our findings, which are detailed below: 1, raised concern with the legitimacy and legality of certain DOJ and FBI interactions with the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. 2, represent a troubling breakdown of legal processes established to protect the American people from abuses related to the FISA process. And we knew that there were abuses going on before because of the Snowden leaks. So that can't be denied. Sorry, people. Obama, a bunghole, right, did this. And you can't get away from it. Quit lying. He had a lot of problems. It's just that you weren't willing to face them, and now that he's gone, we're finally dealing with it. So, investigation update. On October 21st, 2016, DOJ and FBI received a FISA probable cause order, not, and mind you, underlined, under Title VII, authorizing electronic surveillance on Carter Page from the FISC, which is the FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. Okay, they didn't put the FISC in. They should have. Oh yeah, they did. I'm sorry, I just didn't read it. But yeah, from the FISC. Page is a U.S. citizen who served as a volunteer advisor to the Trump presidential campaign. Consistent with the requirements under FISA, the application had to first be certified by the director or deputy director of the FBI. It then required the approval of the Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General, DAG, or the Senate-confirmed Assistant Attorney General for the National Security Division. Okay, you can hear where that's problematic. The FBI and DOJ obtained 1 initial FISA warrant targeting Carter Page and 3 FISA renewals from the FISC, the court, as required by Statute 50 U.S.C. 1805 D and Articles D and 1. A FISA order on an American citizen must be renewed by the FISC every 90 days, and each renewal requires a separate finding of probable cause. So every 90 days they have to renew it, and it also requires separate findings of probable cause. So in other words, each one of them must have its own probable cause to be renewed. You hear that? If you keep repeating the same thing over and over when you keep going in and trying to get this renewed, it's not good enough. You must maintain that you're making some type of progress. And that's in order to maintain the probable cause, in order to maintain your warrant to continue to do this. You see what I'm saying? And that is an issue. That's a big issue. Then Director, right, of the FBI, James Comey, signed 3 FISA applications in question on behalf of the FBI. And Deputy Director Andrew McCabe signed 1. Then DAG Sally Yates, and you remember she was the one that was fired for being an open rebellion against President Trump at a very early point. And she was applauded by the U.S. mainstream media. But then DAG Sally Yates, then acting DAG Dana Boente, and DAG Rod Rosenstein each signed 1 or more FISA applications on behalf of the DOJ. So you can see the progress from being handed from one to the next. And these people continued to maintain this FISA warrant using the materials that they did. That's a problem, because they surely didn't show very much material that was worth even looking at. Due to the sensitive nature of foreign intelligence activity, FISA submissions, including renewals, before the FISC are classified. As such, the public's confidence in the integrity of the FISA process depends on the court's ability to hold the government to the highest standard. What standard here? But anyway, I digress. Particularly as it relates to surveillance of American citizens. However, the FISC, the FISC's rigor in protecting the rights of Americans, which is reinforced by 90-day renewals of surveillance orders, is necessarily dependent on the government's production to the court of all material and relevant facts. Who paid for it? Where did it come from? What's the content of it? With the PIS dossier, you can see where there's a problem. That doesn't even read like good fiction. Good grief, it's lowbrow comedy at best. This should include information potentially favorable to the target of the FISA application that is known by the government. So this should even include potentially information that contradicts the FISA, their own request for the FISA report. Why do they want it? Well, this thing might mitigate against that. They have to weigh that. See that if you can't, okay, let's go back to Popper's idea of falsifiability. If you can't falsify something, you can't really judge it for its merits. So to be able to falsify it, to use what evidence it has against it, and then come out ahead, it does show that the merits are there. To avoid that is actually to do a great injustice to truth itself. So what they were doing is really what a lot of the flat earthers do, is that they try to answer all the questions with their own little questions, and it becomes very circular and it never comes to a real conclusion. That's what happens here, and that's what happened here. That is what happened. And they allowed it. This is amazing. It truly is. Let me back up. This should include potentially favorable information potentially favorable to the target of the FISA application that is known by the government. Okay, so it's making a concession and possibly overcoming it with more important information. They didn't do that. In the case of Carter Page, the government had at least 4 independent opportunities before the FISC to accurately provide an accounting of the relevant facts. However, our findings indicate that, as described below, material and relevant information was omitted. 1. The dossier, right, defining it, compiled by Christopher Steele, the Steele dossier, the piss dossier, okay, the pee-pee dossier, the urination dossier, the prostitutes peeing on the bed dossier. How absurd. Yeah, your business deals fail, so you go in and it's like, where's Obama's bed? And you bring in a couple prostitutes to pee on it. Good grief. That's absurd. Good grief. Where did they get that? Anyway, the dossier compiled by Christopher Steele, the Steele dossier, on behalf of the Democratic National Committee, the DNC, and the Hillary Clinton campaign, formed an essential part of the Carter Page FISA application. It was core. Steele was a longtime FBI source who was paid over $160,000 by the DNC and Clinton campaign via the law firm Perkins Coie, and that's spelled C-O-I-E, Coie, Perkins Coie. Actually, I thought it was Turkish at first. It kind of sounds like Perkins Coie, but never mind. And research firm Fusion GPS, which is a company that seems to be going down the tubes now, to obtain derogatory information on Donald Trump's ties to Russia. A. Neither the initial application in October 2016 nor any of the renewals disclose or reference the role of the DNC, Clinton campaign, or any party/campaign in funding Steele's efforts, even though the political origins of the Steele dossier were then known to senior DOJ and FBI officials. That's key information that should have been supplied and wasn't. B. The initial FISA application notes Steele was working for a named U.S. person, but does not name Fusion GPS and Principal Glenn Simpson, who was paid by a U.S. large law firm, Perkins Coie, again, representing the DNC, again, even though it was known by the DOJ at the time that political actors were involved with the Steele dossier. Really? Well, that's not honest. The application does not mention Steele was ultimately working on behalf of and paid by the DNC and the Clinton campaign, or that the FBI had separately authorized payment to Steele for the same information. Well, gee, that is information that should have been supplied, and wasn't. 2. The Carter Page FISA application also cited extensively a September 23, 2016 Yahoo News article by Michael Isikoff, which focuses on Page's July 2016 trip to Moscow. This article does not corroborate the Steele dossier because it is derived from information leaked by Steele himself to Yahoo News. This is funny. The Page FISA application incorrectly assesses that Steele did not directly provide information to Yahoo News. Steele has admitted in British court filings that he met with Yahoo News and several other outlets in September 2016 at the direction of Fusion GPS. Perkins Coie was aware of Steele's initial media contacts because they hosted at least one meeting in Washington, D.C. in 2016 with Steele and Fusion GPS where this matter was discussed. So what he was doing was that he was bolstering his own work by, well, becoming his own source by leaking it to Yahoo News to make it look better. Like somebody else had given another report of the same type that corroborated his report. This is an intellectual dishonesty that's up there with plagiarism, and maybe even worse, because he's building his own authority by being an authority on him. Think about it. He's telling them his report so that his report looks legitimate. Hello? If I ever caught a student doing something like this, I would so turn them in. Holy cow. I'd say that's worse than plagiarism. It's taking it to a new level. This guy's... I'll give him credit for balls, not for brains. No. But balls, yeah, he's got cojones. He's, oh boy. Yeah, I'll give him credit there. But, in the end, not a whole lot in the Sense Department. Not a whole lot at all. Okay. A. Steele was suspended and then terminated as an FBI source for what the FBI defines as the most serious of violations. An unauthorized disclosure to the media of his relationship with the FBI in an October 30th, 2016 Mother Jones article by David Korn. Steele should have been terminated for his previous undisclosed contacts with Yahoo and other outlets in September, a month earlier, before the page application was submitted to the FISC in October, but Steele improperly concealed from and lied to the FBI about those contacts. So here's something that's a little bit exculpatory to the FBI and the DOJ. Steele's not a very honest character himself. Real problem there. Steele's numerous encounters with the media violated the cardinal rule of source handling, maintaining confidentiality, and demonstrated that Steele had become a less than reliable source for the FBI. Well, I think that's pretty clear. But they kept using his material, even though he was not responsible in the way that he should have been. See, it's their own fault. But they didn't have anything else to work with. That tells you how weak this is. Hello? You can't maintain a fiction of this type. It's not legit. And as far as I'm concerned, anything Steele gets, he really has coming. And there's people within the FBI, because they maintain this illusion, same with DOJ, that because they maintain this illusion, they should be also responsible equally. Oh, this is pretty big stuff. There should be some more people getting ripped out of place. You know, it's fine to have your own beliefs. It's fine to have your own political beliefs. It's quite another when you impose them upon your work when you're working for the federal government. Your boss changes every so often. You do need to go abide by their policies, you know, whether or not you like them. And people that don't, they're going to have to get out. That's why you resign. You quit. You don't want to work for that person. You're not entitled to stay in a job that you're no longer willing to do and do the best job you can. Your boss is the American people. And when we elect a person president, that is the person that you are supposed to obey. And if you don't like it, get out. Number 3. Before and after Steele was terminated as a source, he maintained contact with the DOJ via then Associate Deputy Attorney General Bruce Orr. Well, this is where the plot thickens, right? The senior DOJ official who worked closely with the Deputy Attorneys General Yates and later Rosenstein. Shortly after the election, the FBI began interviewing Orr, documenting his communications with Steele. For example, in September 2016, Steele admitted to Orr his feelings against the then candidate Trump when Steele said he was, quote, desperate that Donald Trump not get elected and was passionate about not him being president, or him not being president, end quote. This clear evidence of Steele's bias was recorded by Orr at the time, and subsequently in official FBI files, but not reflected in any of the Page FISA applications. So this is further information that should have been fitting. This isn't even talking about Orr's problems with his own bias and his own hatred for Trump and willingness to undermine him as a president, and his wife's role over at that Fusion GPS. And she herself is an ex-Russian expert for the FBI, for the CIA. That's where a lot of this comes in. This is so much of this is sticking to some places where it's just tearing out chunks from the deep state, which is really just the bureaucracy and the perennial members of our government who stay regardless of who's elected. So that is what the deep state is, and Orr and his wife represent a really huge chunk of that. I mean, they really are. They're emblematic and well, they point significant. They're significant to where the problems lie. During the same time period, Orr's wife was employed by Fusion GPS to assist in the cultivation of opposition research on Trump. So she supplied some of the information that was given to them and to the DNC and everything else. Orr later provided the FBI with all of his wife's opposition research. This was paid for by Clinton. Paid for by the DNC and Clinton campaign via Fusion GPS. The Orr's relationship with Steele and Fusion GPS was inexplicably concealed from the FISC. Actually, what would be explicable is the fact that, or explainable, and that's what the word means, is the fact that it would tend to really do a lot of harm to their argument. This is a huge counterindication to what they're trying to do with the FISA report. Huge contraindication. But they're not mentioning that. They're keeping it secret from the FISA court. Now, the FISA court may or may not have known, but they're not the ones that need to bring it up. It's not their responsibility. It is the responsibility of those requesting the warrant. Number 4. According to the head of the FBI's Counterintelligence Division, Assistant Director Bill Priestap, and he's kind of become a bit of a mystery man. We don't really know where he stands on things now, although he seems to have at the time been one to go along to get along. But he doesn't seem terribly active. But let me just go ahead and start reading this so you can kind of get a feel for why he's now a mystery man. Start over again. Number 4, according to the head of the FBI's Counterintelligence Division, Assistant Director Bill Priestap, a corroboration of the Steele dossier was in its infancy, quote, at the time of the initial Page FISA application. So he was aware of what was going on there. After Steele was terminated, a source validation report concluded by an independent unit within the FBI assessed Steele's reporting as only minimally corroborated. Minimally, what do we mean by this? It doesn't really say what was corroborated, but it does indicate it isn't a whole lot. That this is pretty shoddy work, for one thing. And what constitutes a minimum, we're left to guess. And I will guess it's very, very, very little. Maybe the fact that Moscow is where it is and that there are prostitutes within the city limits of Moscow. So that might be it. That might be the bare minimum that they're talking about here. I don't know. We aren't told. Yet in January, and I hate what they do here, yet with a comma. Yet in January, or early January 2017, they're starting a sentence with anything that's just tacky. 2017, Director Comey briefed President-elect Trump on a summary of the Steele dossier, even though it was, according to his June 2017 testimony, quote, salacious and unverified, end quote. While the FISA application relied on Steele's past record of credible reporting on other unrelated matters, it ignored and concealed his anti-Trump financial and ideological motivations. Financial, yeah, he's taking money from DNC, for one thing, right? And other ideological motivations, this whole backing of Hillary Clinton, even though she's, regardless of whether they're taking money. And you can not believe in somebody and still take their money. But in this case, I guess to soothe their conscience, among other things. Furthermore, Deputy Director McCabe testified before the committee in December 2017 that no surveillance warrant would have been sought from the FISC without the Steele dossier information. Real key piece of information there. This was the core and basis of it. So these are points that need to be kept in mind by the time that you get around to looking at the denial by the Democrats. When we start to weigh the evidence, such as it is, that will be an important thing. If they have nothing else to stand on other than saying that everything that Nunes said is a lie, then they're going to have some proof that Nunes lied. Because what we've been seeing as far as the evidence coming out from everything else, namely this McCabe under oath saying that there would no surveillance warrant would have been sought from the FISC without the Steele dossier information. That is such a key point, and it's demonstrable. He did speak under oath. We know that he did. We know that this is what he said. That Steele dossier doesn't have much else. And what little else that there is, like the minimal, probably came from Orr's wife and her work that she was doing for Fusion GPS, probably to embroider the dossier itself. So that's really it from this. They become away with a handful of points, and that these, but most of what we've been hearing has just been pretty much proven, and we see that it's part of the logic that Nunes has in why he has the problems he does with the whole thing. But you have Orr and his wife, their involvement, Sally Yates, her involvement, Rosenstein and his involvement. Now Rosenstein, it's hard to say where he's at now. And what his role might have been once Trump became president. Because he might have been told to keep it open for other reasons. We're going to find out who's who and what's what pretty soon, because there's a lot of cloak and dagger going on in here. But what we do know is that McCabe resigned, and it was because of what he had done and the fact that it's not legal. That we have Comey also being part of it for the same reason. Sally Yates also removed. I don't know about this Dana Boente. I'd have to look that person up. Or his wife. Perkins Coie and its role. It's just starting to come out on them. And there's more. It's like it shakes out all the time. It's like dandruff. It just kind of comes off. And there it is all over their shoulders. Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS, all of them, they're all clearly up Poop Creek, and they don't have a paddle. Same with Steele. Steele has been laying low, and I dare say that he's bound for prison. And I think that we're going to see. I think we're going to see heads rolling in very serious ways. And Carter Page looks like he's being vindicated. We'll see. We'll look at the Senate document next, and then the Democratic rebuttal, and then possibly the Republican rebuttal, possibly in tandem with it. I don't know. We'll see. I understand that the rebuttal was very long, and we might have to do a separate one for that. At any rate, we're now analyzing some interesting stuff and getting to the bottom of it, and kind of seeing what is going on there. I think this kind of thing's kind of fun, personally. So until next time, see ya.